This is Beyond the Fold, where we talk about what matters most in modern business. I'm Lawrence Hitches, the GM of Studio Hawk, a globally renowned SEO agency. In each episode, I sit down with people shaping the future of marketing and business. We'll hear how they got started, the wins, the pivots, and the hard lessons learned along the way. So let's get into it. Jess, how you doing?
Very good, Lawrence.
So I'm here today with Jess Vassallo, the CEO and founder of Evocative Media, an absolute powerhouse of an e-commerce agency. And you've gotten a lot of buzz over the last couple of years working with clients like Dish, Lorna Jane, Naked Harvest as well. How are you doing today?
I'm very good. I'm very excited to be here.
Had the double shot of espresso this morning.
I have. I feel like the next one is coming on real soon.
Cool. Yeah, I'd love to hear, because we've met through your event, which we'll talk about obviously a little bit later, but how did it all start for you? And what was the origin story of Jess getting into this whole game?
Look, it's a bit of a crazy story actually. So about 11 years ago, I started Evocative Media, and prior to that, I used to work at a brand fashion house, and so brand side. And I was the executive assistant to the CEO, and I was studying marketing and PR. And I tried for what felt like the life of me to get a job in marketing, and I just found it really difficult to get an opportunity. And, you know, I felt that there was so much that I needed to get a foot in the door, and I just didn't really feel like anyone was giving me that chance. And so I left that role, and I decided to start the agency the hardest way, by doing it with absolutely zero business experience, which I would not recommend to anyone for sure.
But you did it, right?
I did, but it's definitely the hardest way to one, start a business by not knowing how, but also just to break into an industry. But I think the way that I viewed it at the time was, if I wasn't given the opportunity, then I would create it. And that was an incredibly empowering thing. And I look back at that younger version of myself and I think, man, I was so brave doing that. And I mean, I had no backing, no context, no idea really about the industry. And so getting started was incredibly hard. It's not even just finding that first client, it's understanding how to run a business, and, you know, what does it look like? How do I actually earn money doing this thing that I love? And it was very difficult in the beginning, but I think because of how difficult it was, it just really lit a fire in me just to make it work. And I think that's just sort of been one thing about me, is that I've always just figured it out.
So you're an EA for...
I was, yeah.
I think the hustle in that job in itself is that you're wearing multiple hats all the time, dealing with requests out of left field and things like that. So it kind of makes sense that you made that bridge and that step up to the business.
You know what? It's funny, because when I think about the role of an EA, I have an EA and she is so incredible. But I think at the time when I was an EA, I used to say a lot that I was just an EA. And it's so interesting now that I have an EA, and I would never say she is just anything. And I think that's such a shame that people that are in admin focused roles, and maybe they don't have a very shiny title, they really don't see the value in what they provide to a business. And it actually took me leaving that role and stepping into something of my own. And I think even years later of having an EA, where I could actually reflect on that role and realize that it was just such a big opportunity for me. And also, being an EA, I had this exposure to one of the most incredible CEOs. And he really gave me opportunities to feed in on conversations that I don't think I would have that early in my career. But I think he also saw something bigger in me, and really encouraged me to take the step. And I think that's one thing that I really value in that EA, manager role, CEO role, is that I'll always encourage that next step, even if it means that they're not with me.
Hmm.
So, I mean, look, getting started and having no experience and being an EA, it was good I had organization skills. Let's just say that.
That's it. I call it A and B skills. If you're A skills organization, you just need to build up the B and C, which is
Exactly.
So we're coming off, you jumping into the new business, out of the EA role. What's that year one like? What are you doing? What's the day looking like for you jumping into this new world of business?
Well, in the beginning, and keep in mind, there was no ChatGPT back then. So I was Googling everything. And that first year was so tough because I had no idea how to get a client. I spent a lot of time at the gym, which funny enough, that's where I met my first client. And so just, like I would end up putting myself in situations where I would meet people and I guess it kind of grew from there really. And my first client led to the next and then the next. And as I started to build a bit of a reputation, it definitely got easier, but still, I think even the first few years were tough, to be honest. And I think also really important to mention, and a lot of people don't know this about Evocative, is that we actually started as a PR agency.
Really?
And yes, and that lasted for, I think, the first 6 weeks.
Okay, it's a good pivot. Yeah.
And then I realized everything was about social. And 11 years ago really was the height of Instagram, and I saw a really big opportunity. And so we pivoted and I changed the name to Evocative Media, and we started to really lean into paid ads in particular with Facebook. That was when you could put $1 in and get 27 out. And that was excellent because I had started really getting into paid ads at the height of Facebook ads. And so results were much easier to generate back then.
The timing was good?
Yes, it was good, but it actually was, I saw an ad on Facebook for a mentor, and she was an agency owner specifically for Facebook ads. And I remember my whole family actually saying to me, this is a scam. Do not make this investment. And at the time, when you're starting out, making an investment of $10,000 USD, it's big.
Yeah, for a course or a mentorship
It was
program.
For a course, yeah. And so I thought, you know what, if I don't make this, I don't know if I'm actually going to make the business work. And so I took the risk, and I met with that mentor. She ended up becoming incredibly well known in the industry, and it gave me a lot of exposure to I guess the industry as I know it now, and I think paid ads in the way that I know it now. And I think one of the coolest things about those early days is that I was the executor. I was doing all of the work. I wasn't a CEO by any means back then. I was a media buyer, and I was a copywriter, and I was learning about creative and creating creative, and I was wearing all of those execution hats. And I think that's been great because whilst that first year I look back in hindsight, very, very tough and a lot of steep learning curves, knowing how to execute on the tools has just benefited me as a CEO now because I know how to talk about it with brands.
The fundamentals.
100%.
I think that's a missing part of what people think about running a business is if you have a good solid 2 years of you doing the execution, that foundational skill or even the investment into a course, while very expensive, probably 10 years later, you're like, oh, I'm glad I did that. So I can handle myself in a lot of situations and even know what your team members go through when it comes to the challenges and roadblocks that they see. Are you very hands-on when they're dealing with client issues or media buying issues or?
Not so much platform execution. I've been off the tools for maybe seven or 8 years now, maybe less. But I definitely step in if there is anything that I can do for the client. I'd probably say because we're so big on our relationships and the experience that brands get with Evocative, that's really my area of expertise is ensuring that we have strength in that relationship and I can support, where tough conversations are needed. And the honest truth is that tough conversations are needed in our industry because, we're dealing with performance and we're spending money that's not ours. And the expectation is that we drive strong results. And so I guess my involvement now more looks like upskilling my team and giving them access to the tools and resources so they can be successful in what they do. So I guess that's what it looks like now. It's so funny because anytime that I ever feed into anything about execution, I feel like the team just takes it with a grain of salt because I've hired truly some of the best media buyers and email marketers in the industry. And they're like, thanks, we appreciate the input, but we're good. And I honestly, I love that. It's truly just the best thing, seeing a team that can execute without you.
And better than you? Is that what you're saying too?
Oh my gosh, yes. So much better than me. And truly, like, it is actually, I went away last year on a short holiday. And it was actually the first time when I had taken time out of the business, which is a very, very rare thing for me. And I remember waiting for the call that something was going to burn down to the ground, or there was going to be some critical client issue. And the only call that came was from Bella, my head of owned media, and she says to me, "We're good. Just so you know, we're good. Don't call us. We'll call you." And it was so nice to finally know that what I had built over all this time, I had hired the best talent and such a great team and culture, and one that didn't need me in the day-to-day, every day, which is a hard pill to swallow sometimes.
You made yourself redundant essentially in some ways, but you're still strategically quite useful, but the team are like, stay out of our lane. It's a very optimal place to be.
Definitely.
In terms of your clients, we had an interesting conversation earlier about the way that you treat clients as more of that experience. Love to hear more about that.
Yeah, so I guess it's sort of it's a part of who I am and my nature. I'm acutely aware of the life experience that not just my team, but also my clients, the impact that I can have on creating either a good or a bad one. And that is a learned experience. And a lot of it is because of my own experience in corporate, and the experience that I had with bosses or team members. And going into business, I always knew the kind of woman that I wanted to be. And I always knew the kind of culture that I wanted to be. And everything pivots around kindness. And, I think over the years I've been criticized a little bit for being too empathetic or too kind or too soft. And I'm so glad that I stayed so closely aligned with who I am and my values, because it has allowed me to create this really wonderful culture, not just with my team, but with our clients. And when it comes to that experience right from onboarding, I think the easiest way for me to say this to you, Lawrence, is that we just genuinely give a shit. That's really what it comes down to.
I resonate with that.
And there's, I could say all of the wonderfully fluffy things about it, but it really just comes down to your care factor. And I think if you treat every client as a number or, a dollar value, then I really think it's such a disservice to yourself and to the brand. And with our clients, we really pride ourselves on the experience beyond performance. Performance is a given with us. We're very, very good at what we do. We have very low churn, both team and clients. And, and that performance side, when you don't have to worry about that, you can really focus on what the experience is like. So how do you actually show up for a brand? Are you having conversations around the bigger picture, and are you aligning with their internal team and their internal pressures, and really understanding that is so important. And we have such a personalized, hands-on approach with the brands that we work with, and that's so important to me and something that I instill in my team. And even with onboarding with my team, it's really educating them around the importance of the relationships that we actually have with the brands that we're truly just so privileged to work with. And genuinely, that's how I view it. It's such a privilege. I want to make sure that they have the very best experience with us. There's never going to be a situation where my team treats them in a way that I'm getting a phone call from a client. And so performance is something that we really pride ourselves on, but it truly is the way we work with brands, the way we care about them, and just genuinely just giving a shit.
What's some examples of you doing that step in that onboarding? I'm interested. Is it the way you conduct your calls? Is it doing something a little bit above and beyond? Like what's the tactics?
There's a lot of it. The best example I can give you is 100% through education. It's such a passion of mine, the whole education piece. And I'm sure we'll talk about the event that we host for the industry. But it's one thing to deliver a service and to deliver a result and a good result. But educating a team on how we did it, why we did it, and what's important to the brand based on numbers or data or strategy. These are things that require education. And I know that our team, because I've hired an incredibly skilled team, we're in this wonderful opportunity where we're really rich in our learning and understanding of whether it's platform or e-commerce. And so we educate in everything that we do. And it's the way that we show up in that education. And one of the things that we offer all of our brands is whether it's half-day workshops on, how to create the best creative, or, what does performance look like, and what are the metrics that matter, and how can we spend more time learning about the business and the brand and what you're working towards, and how can we fully be a part of that experience and show up for the brand through the education component. And that's just really important for us. And I think it makes us different too, because and truly, for any agency that ever listens to this, my best advice is just to never be afraid of educating your client, because you're afraid that if you educate them, you'll lose them because they'll learn, the craft. And what I know about that is that 99% of people can't or won't execute. You can teach them everything that you know, but you're the expert. And never be afraid of that. And especially in our industry, things evolve so much. But the way you show up for a client, whether that's physically, emotionally, mentally, we're all human. And that I'm always so aware of that experience. And sometimes it's more than just education. Sometimes it's just showing up in person and building that relationship out, or having frequent touch points that are more than just, an email that gets sent out to say, how did we do this month? Or how did we do this quarter? Showing up in the same way that you would expect, a friend to.
Yeah.
Because relationships are important. And I say this to my team all of the time. You want to build a really strong relationship with the brands that we work with, because if there ever comes a time when you have to have a difficult conversation, and being in performance marketing, difficult conversations happen, whether you didn't hit a target or a strategy you tested didn't work. You need to have a solid relationship and foundation to lean on. And that's why we lean in so much on the experience and the relationship part. But also, the way that we, I guess, deem a brand a good fit for us is that they're just decent humans to begin with. And that's also really an important part of that experience for our team, is me ensuring that we're onboarding the right clients.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then in that combination of, you have your values internally, education, find the right clients, what results have you created that you're particularly proud of through that?
Look, so many. I look back in hindsight over our growth over the last 11 years and the brands that we've had the privilege to work with. And truly we work with some of the biggest and fastest growing brands in the country. And sometimes I still pinch myself that we have that opportunity, and it's definitely not one that I take for granted. I think it's important to note before I tell you about the results that when brands come to us, often it's because they've had a bad experience, and that's unfortunately what our industry is known for, is agencies that overpromise and underdeliver, and I think for us, I really wanted to make sure that if we were going to say we could do something, we could actually deliver on it. And so every brand that we have onboarded, I've only ever said yes to a brand that I know that we can actually help grow. And that positions us really well from the start, because we're not overpromising on, results that ultimately we can't always control, especially in e-commerce, paid media.
Hard industry.
It's just
brutal.
Yeah, it is, but it's such a small part of the growth puzzle. And when it comes to performance, we set very, very realistic expectations with our clients, based on data, not assumption. And we've lost deals based on that because, a brand might have, this insane growth target. And based on historical data and our experience, we have to reset expectations around what's achievable. I would rather have a much more upfront conversation around what's achievable and then not. And so the brands that we've had come on board, I remember the day that we got a yes from Lorna Jane. And I actually felt so emotional about that. One, because it was a brand that I grew up wearing and purchasing from.
It was the first brand that you heard about, activewear, at least for me.
Yeah.
Before Lululemons and all the other ones came along, yeah.
And it was so iconic, and it still is. And, it's one thing to land a brand like that.
It was early on in your journey?
This is a few years ago, but I'll tell you about that too, because so much of our growth has really come from the last 3 to 4 years. Prior to that, no one knew who we were. But when we landed Lorna Jane, it's one thing to land a brand like that, but it's a completely different thing to be able to generate consistent results. And our first campaign that we launched into was actually end of financial year, and we generated 225% year-on-year growth for them, and continued that growth and exceeded targets and expectations, and continue to do that. And that, I can't even tell you what that experience feels like for me, because it's such a joy. I love what I do so much, but seeing my team deliver results like that, and for a brand like that, an enterprise account like that, I'm just so incredibly proud of my team and what they're capable of, and the way that they work with the brand. And the truth is, it's not just us as an agency. Having a great product is important. Having a great in-house team is also equally important. I think another one was Age Athletica. That was another one that just landing. I actually feel every client that I've landed, or we've landed, what we call our lighthouse clients, it's always feels like such a pinch me moment. And I know some agencies, as they get bigger, maybe they become more numb to that experience when you land a client that's a household name, or one that you love and purchase from. But for me, even now, we're chatting to an incredible brand right now, and like just the excitement and joy for the potential opportunity we get to work with them, that doesn't change for me. And I remember with Age Athletica, we come on board to set up all their core email automations and flows, and seeing that in 10 months, we delivered, I think it was 37 times the return on their investment, which is incredible.
Incredible.
And I mean, there's so many other brands that we've had truly just the privilege to work with. But I think across both paid ads and email marketing, I think where we see the strongest growth is when brands really lean into the two, paid social and search, and then all the foundational components with email and retention. That's sort of where we see the most growth for the brands that we get to work with. But every brand is different. Performance and what matters to every brand is different. I think one of the things that we really lean into is profitable growth, long-term sustainable growth. And I think a lot of agencies talk about that and not really know what that looks like. And for us, we're incredibly data-driven now, more so than ever, but we really lean into AI a lot more now to sort of aid in our approach to being more data-driven, which I guess gives us a bit of an edge as well. But I wanted to touch on the lighthouse client component because this whole concept of a lighthouse client, I had heard maybe 7 years ago. It was relatively early years. And someone said to me, if you think of a lighthouse, like a lighthouse brings all of the ships to shore, a lighthouse client is one that brings all of the other brands in. And so if you land that first lighthouse client, that's the one that you leverage and you generate really great results for. And that's the important part. You can't just land them. You can't just have that brand name. You have to do great work for them and then lean on that as an agency to grow.
They have to be a case study, basically.
Yeah, a case study. And so the lighthouse client case studies for us, I mean, we've worked with truly just some of the most incredible brands. I think actually when we landed the Dish account, I think I might have even cried a little because we were just so shocked that they picked us. And I think the momentum of our growth as a company has really come from staying so aligned with our core values, the way that we show up for brands, really delivering on the promise of great results. And I think pulling ourselves out of obscurity through events and what we do in the industry and the way that we give back through education.
Let's talk about the event because I think that's a good way. Because if anyone wants to see the brands or the experience that Evocative put on for their clients, it's also an event, a day that you can actually see that in, which is incredible. I think it's one of the best events I've ever been to, especially even just being one day. It feels like a full festival. Everyone's having a great time and there's great food and the people in the e-commerce industry all around. Like, how's that been in the last couple of years? So it started off in Sydney. And now it's been done all over Australia.
Yes, yeah, all over Australia. So we started it and I actually remember sitting at a cafe with Rad from Yopo and I remember saying to him—
Shout out Rad.
Shout out Yopo team. I remember sitting with him and saying, look, I have this vision. I would love to do an industry event, but there are so many events for e-commerce and retail brands. And the feedback from brands is that they're just getting sold to. They go to these events and, they've got to sit and do meetings or interviews with tech partners or solution providers, and they just feel like they're being sold to. And I wanted to create an event where it was a no-sell event and purely educational, just 100% value, not even a hint of selling. And it was actually the Yopo team that backed me, and that having the strength in our partnerships in the beginning really, really helped us get a start at running an event. And mind you, we're about to do our 7th e-commerce growth summit. Most of these events, aside maybe 2 or 3, is mostly me running it. And I mean, we're talking about an event for 350 to 400 brands. And that's a very, very big undertaking as an agency. But if I could look back at our biggest growth lever as an agency, it really was the event. And it is the one thing that I will continue to do, and do it in such a way that delivers on the promise of education, because it's such a big gap in the market. It's I think even when I have a look at how rich in knowledge my team are, I wanted to create an opportunity where I could give that back at no cost to brands. And we have hosted just some of the most incredible brands, whether it's on stage or attending. We've had Nike, Adidas, Maya,
These rooms
Kohl's,
are packed.
Woolworths.
They are packed.
And it's been incredible. In so many ways, it's incredible. I think it's really important to unpack my mindset around this, because it is such a big undertaking as an agency and a business to really go into events and to do it as big as we've done it, and to do it for free.
Yes.
It's meant that we've really needed to lean on our partners. It's meant that we've had to find people that are just great at their craft. Like I know we've had you on stage, and really understand what helps a brand grow and just be willing to freely educate. And that we sort of started, the first event in Sydney we were expecting 20, it was 100, and that was a shock. And so I thought, oh, well, why don't we just take it to Melbourne? And that it was 250 people. And it just gave me a bug to go bigger and better. And I feel like we really got it right when it comes to the education and value component, and having a no-sell event and having the right experts on stage. The biggest thing for us was not just to have people talking about the really, really fluffy stuff and make it sound sexy. It was about getting into the nitty-gritty, into the weeds. I mean, you've spoken at our events, and I want to make sure that what brands learn, they can actually take away. And now we have brands bringing their whole teams to learn from, our experts. And I remember actually we hosted our first one in Brizzy, and it was a packed house. We had a massive wait list. And I was just blown away that we had the whole Princess Polly team there.
Yeah, I've seen the attendee list sometimes, and as it's grown over the years, and you'll see a stack of the same email from the same company just completely down a list. I'm like, there's like 30 people coming from the same brand or a similar group.
It's so great, because I feel like we have become, we've built an event where people can actually come and, get the education that they want around, paid, whether it's search, social, SEO, affiliate marketing, AI, learning from brands. We have a lot of brands on stage. And I think just one other thing I wanted to note on the event, and what I think makes it so different and special, is that when you go to all of these industry events, you typically see the same people on stage, and you see brand owners and founders and C-suite. And that's wonderful. They have incredible stories and scars and lessons they can share. But what I care about is giving a platform to executors, those that
Your
are
team.
in the trenches.
Yeah.
Yes, because how can you learn what's working today if you are not in it today? And so, it was a decision I made to not get on stage myself at my own event and educate, and to give that opportunity to my
You're
team.
busy hosting as well and making sure the days are
And hosting is hard. It's not easy. It's it requires a certain level of energy to just up and down on that stage. But
remember that last one that I went to, someone was late and you were sort of filling in the time, and it was a bit chaotic, but it was fine in the end. But yeah, you have to deal with a lot of that.
There have been a few moments.
Thinking about having to deliver a good 20 minutes of solvable, actionable tips is probably your team's doing that, which is wonderful.
Yeah.
I thought it's a great sign of leadership that you've got the executors, and probably the first time they're speaking on stage in front of that many people about their work. It's like, it gives me chills thinking about how I would feel about that experience.
I look back at the opportunities that I've been given because I'm a CEO. I'm asked to speak at events. I've just come back from New York and Miami. I've spoken in Bangkok. I've been flown all over the world to share, my insights on whether it's, service-based or on how, I've grown the agency. But I want to give that opportunity to my team. And I remember when I first hired Bella, who is my head of owned media, and I remember thinking, now I tried 2 years to get Bella on board.
You told me the story. Yeah, that's a good one.
And when she come on board, I thought to myself, I've really got to figure this out. I have to give her, I have to deliver on a promise that this is going to be better than what she's left, that I'm going to be able to accelerate her career and give her opportunities, put her on stages. And I tried hard with all of the big events to get her on stage, and the feedback was, no, we want you. And so when I created this summit, putting both Kane, our head of digital, also my husband, and Bella on the stage was a no-brainer. But let me tell you, terrifying for them.
Yeah.
I remember being up. It was like our first Sydney summit, and it was we were up till 4 a.m. just practicing in the conference room at the hotel. We were all terrified. We were like, what are we doing? Like, why are we doing this? And it's been really wonderful. Like I often remind them how far they've come, and I think in a way it's just pushed them to be better in so many ways for themselves. And there's something so incredibly special about creating an event, but then also giving others an opportunity to shine.
Yeah.
That is honestly the greatest joy of having hosting an event, is that I can give others a platform when maybe they might not have even been considered because they don't have that really shiny title.
Yeah. They don't have the LinkedIn followers or something like that.
That's it.
But it's a wonderful thing. And I think for any person starting out in their career, they'll be nervous about it. Like, oh, are they going to believe what I say? It's like, well, if you've done the work, that should give you the pure confidence. The nerves are just, you probably just care about delivering a good presentation. But I even think, even if you deliver it half well, people still go, wow, I'm very impressed by someone stepping up on stage all the time and just delivering it to 300, 400 people. It's very rare in society that you would see that be just a normal thing as part of a day-to-day work. But for you, it's like every year you've got people going up on stage showing their incredible work, the case studies.
And honestly, I love it. It's don't get it twisted. It is also the hardest thing I've ever done, hosting an event of this size. But I think very similar to, what I described in the way that we approach our partnerships with clients, the experience is everything. I want to know that when a brand comes to our event, did they learn? Did they get value from it? And I want to make sure they weren't sold to. That's so important. And now we're looking at ways we can elevate it with entertainment. And
secret stuff or any preview?
No, I mean, at our Sydney Summit, we had actually Josh on your team speak at our Sydney Summit and then our Brizzy Summit. And these are the first two summits where we have trialed an entertainment, we call it the 3 p.m. kicker.
Yes,
and
that's our
in our Sydney Summit, I actually had the idea from the wonderful team at Convert Digital. They said, well, why don't you just get a mariachi band to come out and deliver shots to everyone? And I was like, I'm going to do it. And so it's in Sydney at our event last year. I had a 3-piece mariachi band come out in the full traditional get up. Yeah. And I jumped on stage with Adam from Triple Whale and we bought shots for 350 brands. And it was wild and fun and
good reaction.
Yeah, everyone, it just really broke up.
The 3 p.m.'s.
The 3 p.m. is just, when you're heavy on the education, you need the break.
And those last couple of speakers, it's a tough gig at the end. You got to bring it back up.
Yes, and so
I like the play. I like it.
Yeah, and then I actually saw this idea on TikTok. There were these guys that do roaming tiramisu and cannoli, and I was like, okay, I'm doing that. I'm doing that at my next event. So we did that at Brisbane, and I had a traditional Italian band come in and play at the same time, and it was great. And that's the experience part that we're really doubling down on, and I think just sort of makes it. Yeah, quite special. Our one in August I think will be bigger than both.
Okay.
Yes.
I'll keep that in the bag for later. You talk about your team a lot. You described them as a powerhouse, I think as well. That recruitment story, you told me a couple of years back about how you got, was it Bella on board? That was awesome. But how you, in terms of your leadership style today, how are you making sure that your team remains strong a powerhouse, and how are you developing them?
Well, upskilling is really important, and that really comes from the top, and the top is our heads of department, who are very, very skilled. I'm biased, but I know that our head of digital and our head of owned media are the best that, well, I don't want to say the best, but I think they're the best, but I genuinely just think that they're some of the best that the industry has to offer, and that's based on results with incredible brands. And, you know, and I guess our values and ethos is your continuous learning and upskilling. You know, we don't just educate the market, we educate our internal team, and that's really important. Whether that's through internal training or external opportunities to learn and grow and having experts come in. But I look for one thing in particular when we're hiring, and that's grit. And I have learned over time that you could have the most skilled individual, but if they don't have grit, it's probably not going to work out for us. And I mean, there are a couple of other qualities that I look for. Resourcefulness is another one. And obviously, you know, kindness is also equally important. But when it comes to their growth, it really does come down to their willingness and grit in applying themselves. And you know, I'm definitely not the kind of business owner that hires people that look like me, in the sense that, you know, they don't have to have all of the same qualities. But I definitely look for that hunger, that excitement, that grit. It's really, really important. And I don't think we have anyone on our team that isn't incredibly hungry to learn and do more and upskill and be better. And, you know, and even watching them all band together, especially like right now, like we had an agency meeting yesterday and all hands, and listening to them all work together and talk about what they're doing for brands cross-channel for end of financial year. I sometimes sit back and I think, wow, like I actually built this. But so much of it is because we hire the right people. And I definitely have not got that right. I've learned more lessons on the people front than I have in any other part of my business. You know when you've made the right hire. You know when you've made the wrong one. And sometimes I think in my case, you know, I sat on decisions far too long and left decisions far too long because I was probably afraid to have a difficult conversation. And now I really teach my team that those difficult conversations are really important. And there is never a conversation that is ever too difficult or hard for me to have. And I'm a big believer in radical candor, and having that feedback loop with the team is so incredibly important. And, you know, it's funny because I remember an agency owner once saying to me, "What do you think is the most important part of the business? Would you say that it's your clients, or would you say that it's your team?" And I thought about it for a while, and as we went around and listened to all of the agencies give their answer, most of them were talking about their clients. And clients are important. And a lot of them are really highlighting, you know, the really big brands that they get to work with and how wonderful it is. And I get it. But you wouldn't have that without your team. That's the foundation. I just genuinely care about the people that I hire. And I care about their experience with us as, you know, as a company. I'm acutely aware that the way that I show up can impact their day, the way they feel about the work that they do. Even if they love what they do, if they show up and it's a terrible experience because of the way that I show up or the culture that I built, I've not done my job as a CEO. And so just making sure that I have given them every opportunity and access to all of the tools and resources that they need to succeed, that's how we create a high-performing team, truly. And then obviously leaning into education, giving them that opportunity at any point. If they ever see anything that they want to learn, whether it's a course or whatever, I really encourage my team to really lean into their own education. And, we invest in that as a business.
Something I hear in you is a genuine care and investment into your team. And from that, amazing results happen anyway. It doesn't have to be chasing the next big client. It's like if we put all that energy into our team and genuinely care about their progression and growth, what's a $1,000 course that could make them 10 times better and also generate great results? They feel good about it. They're up on a stage speaking about it. It's a great ecosystem that you've built around Evocative. It's very impressive.
Thank you. It's very purposeful.
Yes.
And I think everything that we have done is with a lot of heart and with a lot of purpose, and, working with the brands that we are truly privileged to work with, and even just having the team that I think I pinch myself every day. I think my greatest fear is that I would ever lose any of them, because they're just not just great at what they do, but just great people to be around, and that's so important. Having a business is so much more than dollars in the bank. It's about life experience and creating something of purpose, something that matters.
Amazing. We're at our last question, actually.
Okay.
So here at Beyond the Fold, we're all about what matters most. So what's something you want people to take away from this conversation?
Oh, that's a good question. Look, I think just to touch on doing things with purpose, I think that's important. If you're driven by things that you can achieve, like a revenue target and especially anything that's sort of financial, once you get there, what's next? You need so much more than just that one big financial goal. And I've really learnt that, and especially achieving goals that I never thought even possible in the agency, and revenue targets that I dreamed of hitting. It has to be so much more than that. You genuinely have to love what you do. And, I think back to that version of me that started 11 years ago. And I went all in because I just loved it. I really loved marketing. And I knew that I could create something different. And it wasn't just about doing what everyone else was doing. It was really leaning into what made me different as a person and how I could, through that, change the industry. And I talk a lot about challenging the agency status quo and the expectation. And I think the experience that agencies have really built, unfortunately, in the industry. You should never be afraid to do things different and to align closely to what makes you unique, and your values, because from that you can really create something very special. And I think that's what I've done here. And I see this big gap in the market for really, really great people to create something that's value aligned. And you don't have to copy and do what everyone else is doing. It's okay to be different. It's okay to be empathetic. And don't worry what everyone else is doing. You're not on anyone else's timeline but your own. And I think to truly be in it, to truly build something great, you have to be value aligned. You have to know what you want the outcome to be. And for me, that's more than just a revenue target. It's about creating something that has an impact. And I think, if you're sitting there with an idea and wondering if you should go all in, and you really love it, because it takes so much more than just an idea. It takes just a hell of a lot of grit. Then just go for it. And don't be afraid to be different.
And then you might end up with some tiramisu or tequila shot.
That is
at
it.
An event.
That is it.
Oh, beautiful. Thanks so much, Jess. If the people want to find you and experience what it's like to work with someone who genuinely cares about their craft and their team, where should they find you?
LinkedIn. I think I spend more time on LinkedIn than anywhere else, but reach out to me on LinkedIn. Email is also great. So
Watch out for the next event.
Yes.
Coming up.
Well, we will be announcing the details of the next event very soon. So that'll be on LinkedIn and obviously our website, our social media. So it's just evocativemedia.com, plain and simple.
Check it out.
Love it.
Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thanks, Lawrence.